Well, okay, everyone, it's good to be back, and now we're into Psalm chapter 3. We do hope you're finding this study of the first 6 Psalms both challenging and rewarding. If you are in your homework, you will have been studying this Psalm already on your own. So now we have a chance to study and share together. Well, you already know from reading the passage in 2 Samuel 15 what the circumstances were when David was when he wrote this psalm. Or we can say when he prayed this prayer. His son Absalom was leading a rebellion against his own father, who was God's appointed king. David wrote this psalm simply because he was in big trouble. His own son had turned against him. He knew when he called out to the Lord that the Lord would answer. See verses 3 and 4 of our psalm. In the King James Version of the Bible, verse 1 reads, "Lord, how are they increased that trouble me? Many are they that rise up against me." In his book, Answering God, Eugene Patterson puts it very clearly: trouble triggers prayer. We know that it's true even for people who profess that they don't believe in God or prayer. When the ship they are on is sinking, or the plane is about to crash, and there seems no hope, people will call out to God in prayer. All of us know what it is to have troubles in our lives. The question for us to answer is, what is our response to trouble? Is my first response to cry out to the Lord, or to try and sort out the problem myself? You will remember from Psalm 1 that there are different types or categories of psalm. Psalm 1 was a wisdom psalm. Psalm 3 is in the category of an individual lament. Examples of other laments are Psalms 4, 5, 6, 7, 17, 22 and 25. A lament can be described as a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. These laments include every aspect of life and describe life as it really is. As well as prosperity, life also involves pain, grief, darkness and evil. The laments show us that it's not wrong or an act of unbelief to complain to God about misfortune. These laments are timeless and apply to everyone. They ask the same questions everybody asks, and they refer to the experiences, disasters and problems that mankind has faced throughout the ages. The Psalms are not just historical prayers. They serve as examples that we can model our prayers on in these modern times. When we are studying this type of psalm, it can be useful to look for the different features that are found in this type of psalm. We look for a supplication or an invocation, the action of invoking someone or something, introducing a prayer. For example, "Give ear to my words, O Lord." Number 2, the actual complaint or description of the crisis. "Lord, how many are my foes?" Number 3, the appeal for help. This is often regarded as the most important part, where the seriousness of the situation is laid before the Lord. Number 4, the reason that the person praying believes that God should act. For example, in Psalm 3, we see in verse 8 that "from the Lord comes deliverance." There is often an expression of trust that shows a close relationship between the petitioner and God. There will be an assurance of being heard by God within the psalm. And number 7, the psalm will usually contain a vow of praise. You could review Psalm 3 again and try to find each of the 7 elements that we have mentioned. In verse 3 and 4, we can see where there is an expression of trust that shows a close relationship between the petitioner and God. As mentioned in point 5 of the different features that are found in this type of psalm, the individual lament. So, what sort of God does David have? First point, he has a protecting God. David declares, "You are a shield around me." Point 2, a sufficient God. David calls God my glory, which conveys the idea of substance or wealth. See, number 3, a restoring God. David declares, the one who lifts up my head. 4, an accessible God. Again, David declares, I will call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy hill. In the middle of all his troubles, David is saying, I know my God. In the midst of the mess, David turns his eye to his protecting, sufficient, restoring, and accessible God. In verses 5 and 6, we have a wonderful endorsement of the truth that those that are with us are more than those that appear to be against us. We have the same truth brought out to us in 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 8 to 17, the account of Elisha and his servant. Verse 7 of our psalm is interesting, as David is not asking God to destroy Absalom, but to render him powerless. If the teeth of the lion are broken and his jaw injured, then he can no longer attack and devour his prey. In 2 Samuel chapter 19, we see David's reaction when his son Absalom is killed, even though Absalom had caused David so much trouble. In the end of the day, Absalom was still David's son. So that, just a few thoughts there on Psalm 3, and as you study together, trusting that God will just reveal more of his truth to you all.